So almost 1 year ago, I made this video where I explained how I basically learned Japanese with only one resource that I reviewed in that video, which is the Japanese from Zero video series. This video, however, is going to be a little more detailed, and I'm going to also explain what I did exactly, how I learned Japanese using this resource, and give you some tips on how you can start learning Japanese. The reason I called this video I learned Japanese with this one resource is because I feel like the biggest problem, or two of the biggest problems that I see when people are learning a language are: one, there is a lack of clear path or focus, and two, there's a lack of willingness to learn. And I think that if you can solve these two problems, then you can basically learn any language. And I get it, with a lot of resources online, especially for Japanese, it's really difficult to find the right resource and to not get overwhelmed by all the things that you can learn from. I also had this period where I just stopped learning for a while and I felt too overwhelmed and I didn't know what to do, so I stopped learning Japanese and there was no more improvement. The truth is that it doesn't really matter what resource you choose. What matters is how much time and how much effort you put into the resource. And whatever resource that you choose, the resource has to make you feel like you want to put in the effort and you want to put in the time. And that is exactly what Japanese from Zero, the video series, did for me. And that is why it worked for me. And so I can tell you what I did and how I did it and for how long I did it, but it doesn't really matter because maybe it won't be the same for you. Maybe it won't motivate you. And so I don't know exactly what works for you, because what motivated me doesn't necessarily mean that it also motivates you. So why this resource? Well, remember those two problems that I just mentioned? Well, this video series solved these problems for me because one, I was always willing to learn more, and the video series, they were so fun. I really liked the videos, and so I kept going and I wanted to keep going and keep learning. And two, these videos are structured in a certain order so that if you finish one video, you can just move on to the next and it's really clear what you should do next. So there's a structure. And I bet most people that are watching this suffer from one of these two problems, because if you did not have one of these problems, then you would already be incredibly good at Japanese, because then you would be able to focus purely on learning Japanese without any distraction, which means that you could make huge improvements. And in this generation especially, getting distracted is really easy. And if you combine that with consistency and time, then you will definitely improve. So if you're curious about the resource by itself and how it works and exactly what it is, then you can watch that video, but I'll give you a quick summary. So the owner of the channel is George Trombley. He is an American guy, but he has lived in Japan for a while, and he teaches Japanese on YouTube. But actually he's a book author and he made 5 books, Japanese from Zero, book 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And eventually he started to make videos about them. And he put all of these videos into a video series that he put out on YouTube. So the videos are basically around the lessons that are in the book. So you can either buy the book or watch the videos. And I chose to watch the videos because I like the engagement with the videos. And so what I did is I did 1 or 2 lessons, grammar points every day, and I wrote them down in my notebook as I was going. So the reason I think this is such a great resource is because George is really inspirational, funny, motivating and knowledgeable teacher, and that makes me want to come back to his videos and watch more of his content, which automatically means that I'm going to learn more Japanese. And even when it gets difficult, he is really understanding and he knows that. And so it's really fun to watch his videos. So at one point I even subscribed to his other channel where he unfortunately stopped uploading. But you know, that is only one piece of the puzzle, because if you watch all of these videos, then you are going to end up learning grammar. And in Japanese there's a lot of things. There's words, vocabulary, kanji, writing, and of course speaking. For example, right now I can understand a decent amount of Japanese. I can listen to a conversation and pick out some words and know a general idea of what the conversation is about. But if you asked me to speak to a Japanese person, then I would struggle, but I could probably do it. But you know, that's about it. So when I say I learned Japanese with these videos, then that's true. I did learn some Japanese, but I suck at speaking. I don't know enough vocabulary yet, and I can't write kanji at all. But you know, that's fine because that's not my goal. My goal is to just be able to understand Japanese. So recently I really felt motivated again to learn. I started learning kanji and vocabulary every day because I don't know a lot of vocabulary. So I do my kanji reviews twice a day. I started to learn some more grammar, and I started speaking because I haven't spoken at all and I really suck at speaking. And I thought it would be a great idea to track my progress. So I'm creating a video about that. If that one is finished, then you'll find it in the description or on the screen somewhere. That should be fun. But what I'm trying to say is that I really focused on trying to understand the language, trying to understand Japanese. And if you want to be able to understand Japanese too, then yes, I do recommend this series. See if you can complete this Japanese from Zero series. Right now it consists of a little over 100 videos, I think, but just see how far you can get, because learning Japanese sounds fun and all, but it's actually really difficult to learn a language, and especially Japanese being one of the hardest languages. So the question that you're trying to answer for yourself is, do you have it in you to really learn a new language? And as you are trying to complete this series, you will find the answers to other questions as well, such as, do you actually enjoy learning a language, you are going to have to learn about language, not just simple things, but also verb conjugations, different kind of adjectives, particles, all these things that maybe are new to you. And if you don't like learning about language, then it's going to be really difficult because you have to learn these at some point. So my next question is, are you able to study consistently over a certain period of time? Because when you stop learning, you are going to stop improving, obviously. And when you do stop learning, then why is that? Are you motivated? Do you even have a goal? Because learning without a goal is always going to lead to you quitting the language, in my opinion. I've had this period where I just didn't know what to learn. I had no goal, and I just stopped learning, and naturally I stopped improving my language. I've had my period where I just stopped because I had no more motivation, I stopped learning, and so I stopped improving. I'd say these are the requirements if you genuinely want to get good at Japanese, and that is just understanding, not even speaking, because that's a whole other thing. Of course, there are some similarities, but this is just for trying to get good at understanding the Japanese language. So if the answer is yes, then you should definitely start with these series. So after I knew the basics, it was really difficult for me to decide what I wanted to learn next, and I ended up learning random grammar that I didn't need and I didn't want to learn, and I just lost motivation and stopped learning. And that's why I think having a goal is so important, because if you have no goal, then you have no reason, and without a reason you are going to quit eventually anyway. So the most important thing I can tell you here is that you have to find something that interests you and combine that with the language. So continue learning grammar, but don't focus too much on it. Rather, find native content that interests you and mix that with grammar. So for example, what I do a lot is I watch YouTube content in Japanese about topics that I really like, and those are vlogs, breakdance, bikes, language, things like that. My goal here is to hear the grammar being used by a native speaker so that it actually sticks in my brain. And also by listening to a lot of native content, you can really get used to how the language sounds, because when you hear it for the first time, it's really fast and you're not sure what they're saying. So it's really important to get used to what the language sounds like. So when I'm watching native content and I hear something that I don't know, I just pause, take a second to look it up online, I read through it, what it means, and then I'll just move on. I don't try to drill this grammar because that's useless. You have to encounter it a couple of times. Just try to find out what it means and just move on, because the main focus here is the native input. So after you reach the intermediate level, it becomes really difficult for me to explain what you should do next, because I don't know what your interests are and what you know. And if you find something that you don't know, like a particular grammar, then you can just find these on YouTube or the internet. There are tons of lessons of those online. But I can share with you my experiences and what I struggled with, which is, like I said, I lost motivation, I stopped learning, I stopped uploading, and I just didn't know what to do next. And I learned that the only way to really improve is to keep learning and to do this over a long period of time. Because, you know, at some point I thought, even though I have a decent amount of knowledge now, if I just wait, you know, I'll watch some things and I'll get better. But that's not true. You have to actually keep going and keep learning, otherwise nothing is going to happen. So I set up a goal, and my two goals right now are: one, I want to be able to understand Japanese just as well as I understand English. So this is also input based. Whenever I do something online or I interact with people online, it's always in English, and I have really no problems understanding that. Sure, when I'm speaking English, for example, right now, I'm struggling a little bit. I don't really care about that. I just want to be able to understand everything I consume online, basically, in English. And I want to be able to do that as well with Japanese. And for my second goal, this is actually output based, which is I want to be able to have a casual conversation and just talk about basically general stuff. But also when there's something that I don't know, I want to be able to express that to another person and ask questions about that so that I can learn Japanese in Japanese, basically. The same thing as with English right now. I'm able to have decent conversations. I can just talk to people. But for Japanese, it doesn't really have to be really advanced. As long as I can have a decent conversation, I'm happy. I know with the proper mindset, effort, and time, I really believe that this is possible. Not just for me, but for anyone. I don't really believe that some people learn languages better than other people. I think anybody can learn a language. And actually that is true because, you know, you speak your native language. So the brain is able to understand language and learn another language. It's just the way that we do it is different for some people. For example, you have to make mistakes, and some people are just really bad at that. They don't want to make mistakes, so they don't want to put in effort, and therefore they won't learn. In my opinion, learning another language is just opening up to another way of communicating, and to me that is just so damn interesting, the language by itself and how it works. And I think if I can do it, then you can do it too. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.